Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about qualitative interviewing, and obviously, that's what your module is about as well. So, hopefully, you find this to be interesting and not too challenging of material. So, you guys probably can figure out, based on your own, knowledge and common sense, what a qualitative interview is, right? It's kind of an interaction between an interviewer and somebody that they're asking questions to. It's usually kind of a purposeful conversation, so to speak, of trying to figure out information. This might be done by police officers and such when they're interviewing people to find out information about crimes and such like that, too. So, and also, when we're conducting research, we conduct interviews to find out information. Um, so interviews are kind of what's considered to be more of a qualitative research methodology. Remember, we talked about the difference earlier in the semester between qualitative, research versus quantitative research. That's mainly do with numbers and stuff like that. And like I said before, this perspective really allows people to gain a richer understanding about people's perspectives and why they actually believe the things that they do. And they're really good for figuring out different issues that maybe we don't know that much about. For instance, maybe some criminologist someday is going to be lucky enough to be able to interview some of these school shooters and stuff that we have. I know there's been a couple that haven't actually successfully committed suicide and now they're in prison. So to be able to interview them and find out exactly why they're going and shooting people might be an interesting topic, an interesting part of research that you could do. It's not really something that we could collect a lot of data on and then analyze with our SPSS software and stuff to try to figure out why, because there's not really any data on that. And so usually there'll be, with interviews, some sort of interview schedule, which is the structure of the interview. Usually this will have, kind of some predetermined questions or areas that are be discussed, and these are usually related to your research questions and hypotheses and, your independent, dependent, and control variables and stuff like that. And then you can have within interviews, you can have different types of interviews. So you can have structured interviews, which have a standardized question and answer type response, and then you can have kind of a semi-structured interview that's a little bit more gives the interviewer a little bit more freedom. And this usually will have more open-ended questions, which you might ask, why do you do this? And then you would look for themes that might emerge as you interview different people. Versus the structured interview, you would say, have you ever smoked marijuana? Have you ever drinking alcohol? Things like that. And then it'd just be yes, no, and maybe you might ask how many times they've done it or something like that. So, structured versus unstructured. They both have their own, kind of pros and cons, so to speak. The unstructured interviews are more open style. It's kind of more of an informal chat where we're just kind of sitting around and talking about whatever it is the issue is that we're talking about. And then there's kind of focus groups, which are a little bit more of a group interview, so to speak. Usually you'll have multiple people in there, about 6 to 12 people brought together, and then everybody will kind of talk and use to generate hypotheses and things like that. This can show how people, opinions are produced, expressed, and exchanged in kind of this group environment instead of just having one-on-one. And so it has its pros and its cons as well. So you could engage in kind of group think, so to speak, whereas, one person says something and other people just kind of go along with it, which, has its kind of drawbacks, right? So there's some kind of things you want to think about when you're designing qualitative interview questions. Interview questions can assume different forms, just like survey questions, right? And so, the branch approach involves having a main topic with branching questions. And so maybe you might ask, have you drank any alcohol in the past year? And then you'd have several other questions that branch off of that. or kind of a river and channel experts, so to speak. And this might be where they all go off into separate directions rather than kind of branching off and having some. It's kind of you could think about it as kind of your contingency and filter questions, so to speak, might be involving the branch perspective, and then you think about your river and channels, you would really just have one filter question and then a whole bunch of different contingency questions that come off of that. Uh, you have to decide what order to tell the story. And these are important things too. Sometimes people don't remember things chronologically; they remember things kind of backwards, which is interesting, right? Um, so it's really good to create an outline at least of what information you're trying to get out of the person. Even if you're not going to come up with formal questions, at least have some categories and stuff that you've got prepared that you want to talk about because you might end up in the interview and then realize you've forgotten what you want to do, and that could be, very challenging and frustrating for the person that's, spending their time to be interviewed. And you'll want to avoid kind of your double-barreled, complex, difficult language, complex questions, and different things like that. It's kind of similar with, the issues with survey methodology. You don't want to confuse people. You can use kind of probes. A lean in might suggest that the person tell you more. You could kind of nod along with them. Things like that. But that also can encourage people to talk, but it's also kind of encouraging them to go along one trajectory, and so this can have kind of some suggestive, factors to it as well that you might want to think about. Um, Gaining access to participants is one of the biggest challenges as well. Like most people don't want to sit and be interviewed for a long period of time. And then, so that can be a big challenge. If you want to talk to people about, criminal justice issues and crime and things, people are going to be reluctant to talk to you. They don't want to tell you about their criminal activities. And, so those are one of the big issues that you can come to find when doing interviews or trying to do interviews. Um, they can be in person. They can be on the phone. They can actually be online or in a survey too. I mean, you could use uh, Skype to do them. Face to face are kind of the most common, way of doing it. You want it to, most importantly, kind of develop a rapport with the respondents. And I think in my example, I was giving you all, I think it was the last lecture, and I was talking about my dissertation chair and my mentor when I was in graduate school, and how he was having trouble getting people to tell him things. But then, the young blonde graduate student, she went in and they told her all kinds of stuff. And so she did a good job. She was a very friendly person and developed a good rapport with people. So that worked. And the people are going to tell you more things if they feel more comfortable. If you make them feel uncomfortable and they don't really like you, they're not going to tell you that much. Um, so, some other issues that you might want to think about is having kind of an interactive interview where you kind of exchange information rather than just asking them the questions. It can start to feel a little bit like an interrogation if it's just, you're just writing things down and, asking question after question. You don't want to do that. You want to also make sure that your facial expressions don't imply any kind of judgment or anything like that, because that could be quite problematic and people won't feel comfortable talking with you. It's just the same as you think about going and trying to talk to people and meet friends or get a date for Friday night or something like that. You don't want to come across as being an unpleasant person that people are trying to get away from as quickly as possible, like you all probably are with research methods in this class because it's not fun. I understand that completely. I promise I am much more fun in other classes than I am in research methods, but research methods is what it is. Anyway, getting back to the idea of conducting focus group interviews, I kind of already talked about group think. I didn't mention though that sometimes you can have dominant group members. I mean, those of you that ever worked in a group project, you notice that there might be some people that might be a little bit more bossy than others. and they can kind of take over things sometimes. And so you, as the facilitator and the researcher, you need to be aware of these things and try to not let that happen. And you've probably seen professors do that when someone is kind of taking over the class discussion, and they'll be like, "Well, can we hear? Does anybody else have any thoughts, or we want to hear from someone else on this?" and things like that. There's subtle ways you can do that because you don't want to discourage people from talking, because then everybody else will. And you certainly don't want to snap at them, yell at them, and things like that. Um, and so one of the ways that is most common is people will often record interviews, and this can actually help a lot because then you don't have to try to write every little thing down. And it allows you to talk to the person and pay more attention to them. And so you do need to, tell them. And some people will not be okay with you recording them. And so, that's something that you need to go over beforehand, and figure out what you want to do with that. And usually what will happen is you record it, and then you'll transcribe it into, kind of like a court record, so to speak, of what they said and what you said. And then you usually get rid of the recording and stuff, is usually what IRB wants you to do. You might even de-identify it so that way it's just participant X's interview and it doesn't even say the person's name and things like that. So that way, if these records should ever be subpoenaed or something, then they won't be able to link it to whoever it was that said that. It'll just be participant X, Y, or Z, that said these things. And that can be a way to preserve kind of the anonymity of the person, even though you might have known who it was at the time. 5 years later, you don't remember who said what, and you can very well go to court and say that you don't remember who was what, and you de-identified this data on purpose. You didn't do it of course, be in contempt of court, but you did it to preserve the anonymity in accordance with the IRB and your proposal that was approved by the university and things like that. So you want to go through and find kind of themes. One of the things that they talk about with qualitative research is you want to get to a point of saturation. So if you're interviewing a bunch of drug addicts and you get to usually around 20 or so, you'll start hearing the same stories over and over and over again, and kind of the same thing. And that's what's known as kind of this point of saturation. Once you've reached a point of saturation, most people would argue that you don't really need to do any more interviews, that you're kind of just getting redundant information. And so at that point, you can stop. And that's kind of how you decide a lot of times how many interviews you're going to do. You would usually set out for 20. You might, usually they say that the minimum you need is 20. And then you might try to do some more and then say, well, we've reached the point of saturation. Quality and rigor in analyzing the stuff. You have to look at kind of the themes. Like, what were the big themes that we came out with in these interviews? What are the big takeaways? Is there anything that contradicts these things? Maybe something that one person says contradicts the other people. These are all things to think about and certainly write up in your results, right? Because they're interesting qualitative data that could help future researchers to be able to conduct their research. So that was really all I had to say about qualitative research. Of course, you can read your chapter and make sure to please do your discussion boards and your quizzes. There's an interesting little video on qualitative interviewing on your assignments, so please don't forget about that. And with that, I will sign off and I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks.